Hey there, welcome to another episode of the RocketMSP Podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. Today I'm joined by Kyle Jackson in the center. In fact, I need to move myself. I like to bookend myself when we have three of us. So Kyle's on my left, and Tony Francisco is on my right. So unless I'm doing it wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about passwordless logins. And before we do that, though, I want to kind of learn a little bit more about, who you guys are and your company and why should we believe you. So let's start with Kyle. No, let's start with Tony. Tony, how about you fill us in who you are, who is CloudPlus, and why should we believe you? Now we lost his audio.
Oh, no, you're muted, Tony.
Oh, here, let me...
Better? No, better. There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Someone's messaged me saying there was some reverb, so I muted just to make sure it wasn't me. First off, thank you, Steve, for having us on. I really appreciate it. And you have quite the following. My name's Tony Francisco, CEO, founder of CloudPlus. In a nutshell, back in 2003, I started a company called The Message Center and themessagecenter.com. That was what's now considered the fourth known hosted exchange offering in the world. The other three were about 42 days before me, and I'm so mad. It was so close. But Microsoft Exchange back then hosted was unheard of. And I distinctly remember getting into a bet that this will never be anything more than a hobby. And fast forward today, Office 365 is ubiquitous. It's kind of a common denominator in businesses in today's world. And hosted exchange is just what would be considered an enterprise class email system platform that has encompassed so many other things in the Microsoft ecosystem. So what we did from hosting these servers from way back in the day, there was no such thing as an MSP. There was no such thing as a cloud. It was ASPX, if everyone remembers that. We decided, well, let's separate the hosting component and have a true hosted services distribution platform that can plug into the vendors that'll be providing the hosting, the very hosting themselves. And through this platform, allowing MSPs to sell what they want, how they want to, who they want on this platform. And we can slowly, or rapidly, add and sunset services as the evolution of technology continues. So the primary audience is the MSP, the reseller market, but the design is architected with the assumption that the MSP may or may not be involved in the process. So that automation, that customer-facing interface for complete self-administration, click to provision, one username and password, having the ability to have sub-resellers, having a different price for a different service for a different customer, and making that all very simple and baked into the platform was the necessity as we move forward with the platform, and we've been pretty successful along the way.
Excellent, thank you, Kyle Jackson. Can we get some background on you, sir? And now he's muted. Let me.
It's catching. It catches. Oh my goodness.
This is what happens when you guys meet yourselves.
So, Steve, I've been in the MSP space since early 2011. I had the pleasure of being a part of the ConnectWise sales machine. Learned a lot along the way. Most importantly, I fell in love with MSPs. And I'm throwing you into this bunch, Steve. You guys are some of the hardest working people in the country. I mean, right up there. If we're talking about essential services, over the course of the last 12, 18 months. MSPs are pretty high on that list, keeping SMB to mid-market, even a lot of enterprises are tapping into MSP stack here recently, keeping the world moving. So I fell in love with that. I made a lot of friends. I have a lot of contacts in the MSP space. But so with that, I'm focused at CloudPlus as the director of strategic alliances, and making sure that we're partnering with the right companies, making sure that we're partnering with the right solutions, that we're hitching our wagons to the right organizations or groups and such. So, I'm mostly focused on connecting to people, just because that's fun. So I love my job.
Excellent. So, Tony, did you work with a lot of MSPs before bringing Kyle on board? No, he's muted. Oh, man.
You know what? I try hitting the mute button. The camera button goes, listen, I can design a complex platform, but a mute button, don't ask too much. Yeah, in fact, we started with the MSP community. I've been actively involved in the MSP community still to this day with CompTIA and a variety of other communities, making sure that what I assess from my personal perspective translates into real world execution, the wants, the needs, and making sure that we're providing what I consider to be a solution for the rhythm, the cadence of the MSP community, because it was VARs. Then it went to MSPs, and then it's becoming TSPs, because everybody's realizing that we're all selling the same thing, and that frictionless commerce experience is critical. So, and adding your own specialty sauce on top of that is going to be a driving factor for your customer base. But that frictionless commerce, that ease of consumption and management, is what gives you that stickiness to the customer for recurring revenue and other opportunities as well.
Excellent. So, CloudPlus been around for a while, and you're like a cloud distributor, kind of.
We are. I would classify us as CloudPlus is the first true hosted services distribution platform. There's quite a few other players out there. I like to say that I hate saying this because Kyle knows where I'm going with this. We're a platform that has many integrations, and each integration comes preloaded with a distribution agreement, which makes us, by definition, CloudPlus is a distributor. Mm-hmm. But I hate distributors. Don't call me a distributor. It's like a personal, offensive, fighting word. And the reason I hate distributors isn't because distributors themselves are bad. They're needed. They're absolutely required, but they have not evolved to the needs of the reseller and the customer. They are predominantly a billing mechanism with the kinetic energy of tens of billions of dollars of storing the actual hardware.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Distributors, they haven't evolved. I mean, they're still trying to sell you Cisco switches and routers, and you're trying to buy cloud stuff from them. So what they do is they take their current, we have inventory, and we want to sell you that inventory, and they just bolted the cloud software billing onto that, and they make it really
it's almost
frustrating
awkward.
And like, I don't know what it's like for you with reselling or provisioning or whatever with some of these services, especially like Microsoft. Provisioning Microsoft is painful with some of these distributors, and integrating with an existing Microsoft is even more painful.
So we whittled away at this one step at a time, and to give you an evolution of where CloudPlus came specific to Microsoft, we did the integration. We CloudPlus are a CSP, which is great. It's excellent to understand. Not because we're a CSP and you can drive your business through us. That's great. We come preloaded with that distribution agreement. What we allowed is for vendors to use the platform as it was designed and replace our vendor agreement, in this case CSP, with their own vendor agreement, in this case another CSP. Microsoft would never know that CloudPlus is involved. However, the CSP that originated, that probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over years of work, acquiring, maintaining, and evolving the CSP agreement with Microsoft, they can now offer a customer-facing interface for instant provisioning, instant management from the customer perspective. They have the ability to pull all of the users from an AD sync level back to the platform and sync it back to whatever their, let's say, PSA is, or whatever whatever they're using internally. And that's unheard of in real time. They're able to have sub resellers. So now they're a CSP that is now able to syndicate this CSP agreement through the CloudPlus platform. They have the ability to have a different price for one customer for some licenses and a different prices for other customers without having to do systemic changes or month-to-month changes. They can surface the pricing to the end customer. They can private label everything. There's so many different things they can do now that were outside of the scope of that CSP before, because they didn't have a platform that was neutral to this environment. And so that's what the platform was originally designed for. But along the way, we had to be a CSP. We had to figure out how do they actually work? What's the day-to-day activity? What are the complaints? What are the positives? What are the strengths? What are the actual needs that no one's addressing? And that's what we worked on. Initial integration, then the ability to substitute that out to make it a seamless process.
And so I'm going to preface this question. First, I'm not actually going to do this, but I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying Rocket MSP could sign up as a customer, or whatever you want to call it, a client of CloudPlus, and then I could act as a distributor to like all the people that like watching me, and they could get their Microsoft and whatever else you guys sell through me, even though I'm just a billing middleman at that point because it's still going through you, right?
Yep.
You're still muted.
You're muted, Tony.
Better. I'm trying to do it to hopefully cut down any background noise, but the target audience that we are addressing right now is the MSP directly, but we're moving very slowly for quite a while, and you're going to start to see some pretty big announcements that we're moving upstream very quickly. Like
Sure.
the next week or two, you're going to start seeing some pretty big announcements, and we're so excited about it, which means that these upstream providers have thousands of resellers, and the resellers can use this platform that may or may not be preloaded with distribution agreements by the upstream provider. Okay, they may or may not have those vendor agreements. We prefer that. That's not our core competency. Our core competency is the hosted services distribution platform. So, but what can happen then is that there is a very specific taste, a flavor to what that upstream provider is offering to their audience. So, a Tech Data Synex, that new alliance, they're going to have one type of flavor. A D&H could have another type of flavor. A Pax8's going to have an Arrow. There may be some telcos out there that have different flavors. We can address that because the lowest common denominator is that everybody is basically selling the same thing, but they're doing it a little bit differently. And we're just the mechanism to provide that interface for the end customer and an ease of management from the reseller perspective.
All right. That's pretty cool. So short version, I couldn't be a reseller to MSPs. You're going after the Synexes and the Tech Datas and the D&Hs of the world.
Steve, you absolutely could if you wanted to. In fact, to be fair, one of the other things is we're a CSP, but we're also an indirect with Microsoft. So in that example, you could actually bring your CSP to us with your information, and then we would just act on your behalf. So yeah, absolutely, you could. We have resellers who have resellers underneath them. Where
That's
it makes
really
sense,
cool.
they're adding value. They're adding value to the process somewhere. It absolutely makes sense in some scenarios for an MSP to go one layer below us instead of coming in direct.
So the one thing that I could not find when I went to your website, it says you've got over 200 or over 300 different companies that you work with. Did I read that correctly?
In what capacity? I think
the products. There's over
products. Yes.
Yeah. There's hundreds of products.
We're coming up on 1,000. We got to update that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's
Okay. So with that, like, how can I see that list? Like, I don't know if I want to sign up with you guys because I hate having all these distributors. Where do I see the list of who you guys work with?
Well,
No, that never happens.
here's the beauty of it. Sign up. It doesn't cost you anything. We're not going to spam you, but just sign up. There's no upfront cost here. Basically, as a distributor, we're taking a small fraction. Let's be honest about the business model here. We're taking a small fraction, what sits between you and that product. So just sign up, Steve. I'll hook you up. So
all right. So we can go to cloudplus.com. We can sign up to be
.net.
I'm sorry.
We had
cloudplus.net.
Yes.
Somebody stole that from you, huh?
Somebody.
South Africans.
No, it was Australians. It was Australians.
Oh, Australians. Either way. It's funny
Those
accent.
guys, let me tell you, those kangaroos are the flipping worst. All right, so go to cloudplus.net, and that's where you can learn, even just sign up, become a partner. There's no like vetting process. You don't have to supply. What all do those other guys ask for? They ask for like bank references and business references and like all this garbage.
Can you do me a
That's part of
favor?
the legacy problem, though, right? Where the legacy problem required thousands of dollars of hardware on trust from them to you. With software, it's a transaction that happens immediately. And by the way, if you decide to stop paying us, we have the ability to stop delivering services. We don't do that, but we have the ability to stop delivering services. So the risk is inherent in the actual agreement in the transaction between the two parties. So
that's pretty cool.
So do me a favor, Steve. If you can go to cloudplus.net /services, it has a list of everything there. If that helps.
Well, I saw it had like 10 things there. So those
are the
Microsoft
vendors. Those are the vendors. So the services inside those vendors, I think if you put your
okay. So yeah, there's Microsoft, but then they have 19,000 SKUs just so you can figure out which Office 365 you want. So that's where that almost 1,000 comes from. Okay. So there we have it. I will actually put this link into one of these cute little banners. Oh, it's gonna be magical. Here we go. Boom. There we go, guys. So that's the URL. Go check that out. So all 19,000 Microsoft SKUs and more are available there. I'm really confused by this. What is this? Quotation semicolon dash dash. What are you doing to me?
Where's
that? Is that really the I have been pwned or have I been pwned?
Oh yeah, you haven't seen that?
Oh yeah,
that's really their logo.
Let me see. Where is that? Have I been pwned? Where is it? Where are you? Oh yes, that's their actual logo. Page. Yeah, that's their actual logo.
Oh, that's ridiculous. All right.
I mean, first off, does everyone know what Have I Been Pwned is? I should probably.
We've talked about it enough. Most vendors think we really need dark web scanning. So I mean, pretty soon it's going to come with our toilet paper. Have I been pwned? Yes, I have.
So just to add some edification for everyone's edification and clarity on what that is. So since we're going to have the account and the users in the account in the CloudPlus platform, we decided that adding additional services that are free, that are beneficial, is a huge win, especially in the COVID era where everyone was trying to cut down costs and add value. I mean, everyone was freaking out in the beginning. That was literally the first thing that we did. And what it does, instead of having to go to haveibeenpwned.com and entering an email address individually to find out where that email address has been compromised, we run that every day on every one of your accounts that you say, hey, yes, we would like this, and give you the report. So you can provide that report to your customers or allow your customers to access it themselves. Since the account is as strong as the weakest link, and we all have passwords that we've used for long periods of time in multiple locations. If one of those locations has been compromised, then you're pretty much compromised at all of those other locations, because the username is still going to be easy to query at these other locations with the same password. And then it's just a matter of time. So we're saying, hey, why don't you educate through exposure? And this is a free process that's baked into the CloudPlus platform. And it seems to be pretty, it's resonated very nicely with people.
That's really cool. Well, so I see one of your vendors here is called Secret Double Octopus. Now, I got to say, that's a ridiculous sounding name. What on earth? What on earth is a secret double octopus?
So before, I'm going to let Kyle take this one, but I will say this: I'm reading through some publications. Kyle, what was that? It was like 9 o'clock at night. I emailed Kyle 9 o'clock at night. I said, hey, let me pause for a second. It's about 8 o'clock. And I'm reading. It says SDO. SDO is we refer to them. Secret Double Octopus. The name, I said, well, I gotta read. if it's in a security briefing, I'm gonna read it. And if it's called Secret Double Octopus, I'm like, you caught my attention. Congratulations. I'm gonna review this. So I went through it, and then I went back even further, and I dug even deeper into the history of the company, the founders, and the point of origination and the evolution of the company, and what their mantra was, what was their focus, what was their skill set. And as I did this, I realized, oh, we need to use this now. Like, either internally, we need to integrate, we need to have a distribution agreement. Fast forward at 9 o'clock, after 9 o'clock at night, I text Kyle. All it says is, we need this. And then 5 minutes, he goes, on it. And then within a half hour, hey, we got a meeting with their basically their C-level tomorrow morning. And I said, okay. That was one of the weirdest. I was like, I just, how responsive, how quick everybody was in that process. Because they did a little bit of research on us, like, who is this company? What? Okay, let's just talk. Let's figure out. And then from there, Kyle, would you like to kind of talk about SDO and who they are?
Yeah, it was meant to be, Steve. Secret Double Octopus, with a name like that, of course, it's got to be something special. And there's an actual meaning behind the name. So in essence, they're a passwordless IAM, identity access management tool. And the more we dug and the more we saw what their solution actually did. In fact, we were on a demo. The first demo they showed us, one of their engineers, and he was logging in, and because of he was like resetting his phone, and Tony was like, why don't you just type in your password? And the guy literally looked up at the camera and said, I don't know my password. And we were like, okay, stop. We're done. You have a solution that works, and you don't know your password. You're an engineer. What engineer in the world doesn't know their password? And at the core of what their solution solves for, it's really, really simple. Authentication. Passwords are the problem with when security is at play. Password is the problem, and it's not really. If we go back and what's the root of that? It's the user is creating the password. That's the problem. So user-generated passwords are the real problem. And all the solutions that we'd come across were kicking the can. They weren't solving the problem. They were just allowing a container for the user to still be involved in the process with a password. And these guys actually solved it. So the core of it is the name. Since we're talking about the name, it's two different sides of an equation coming together with, broken out the password that's actually split across three different levels of encryption. And when you put them together, on the diagram, they're like, wow, that kind of looks like two octopuses coming together. So that's where the octopus, double octopus came from. So it is a fantastic solution. We were so excited to bring this to market for the SMBs. This is the first passwordless authentication solution built specifically for the SMBs, being delivered via our love of the channel, a la MSPs. So it's fantastic. So you just popped up. Thank you for doing that, Steve. Everyone hates passwords.com. It's a reality. Everyone hates passwords. It is, at the core, Tony likes to say, you put up a password policy and asks everybody to change their password. What's the first thing they say when they get that prompt? Oh crap, I got to change my password. Nobody likes that process. And without a doubt, whenever that happens, the number of help desk tickets that go through the roof of people who can't log in because what Tony, it's within 24 hours or even 48 hours after you change your password that the brain still doesn't recognize it. So like, how many password resets happen, after they've already done it. So the fact is we're perpetuating the problem, and we have been for years. And this solution actually solved it. That's why we loved it.
And I'm not going to say who, even though you guys know who. I was telling you the other day when we spoke about this, I know someone who, whenever they have to change their password at work, quarterly, every 3 months, like clockwork. So like what's their current password? It's April 1st. So their password is spring 2021 ! And in 3 months, it'll be summer 2021 ! It hits all of the markers, upper, lower, number, symbol. So of course that works. It makes me die a little inside every time.
You give me an anxiety attack when you say that. Like, it makes me sweat. What I tell people is very simply this: security is important, and we all know that. But what happens when you tell your users to change their passwords every, let's say, 30 days? Because password rotation is incredibly important to get rid of using the same password in multiple locations for long periods. We all understand this. This is not rocket science. This is every single person that you talk to goes, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. The moment you tell people that, 3 things happen. The first thing is everyone wants to kill you as an IT admin. They're just like, "What? How dare you? What are you doing?" And then of course they got to eat that. Okay, fine. They're going to deal with that. The second thing is your support tickets go through the roof. I mean, and every Monday it's the same people, we know, but they're just going to go double-digit explosion. And then finally, the passwords themselves become less secure. And you just gave an example of that. People start writing them down. People just start enumerating them with a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, whatever it is, a date. And then if somebody can figure out what the date is, it's not rocket science. This is actually very, very predictable and preventable problems. But the question is how. And with SDO, when we found this, like Kyle said, the very first thing I noticed was you just did something that is so disturbingly poetic of not knowing your password. It's almost absurd to think like that, but that's the way it should be. Passwords should not be an issue. So having your password rotated every 2 minutes, 24 hours a day, should terrify the end user. But if you remove that, well, let me pause. This is a very serious question for everybody to answer. Mm-hmm. How can you implement a security policy or security mechanism that actually improves the end user experience?
By removing the end user from the equation.
Well, don't be a jerk. That's what Kyle wants to do. He's like, okay.
that's the only way, though.
Yeah.
Like,
that's it.
That's exactly. Every single MSP is like, yes. But I apologize. This pollen is killing me. I'm dying over here.
It's not pollen, guys. It's the Rona.
It's totally. I got the vid. Look at just starting the rumors right now. I've already had it. I've had it like 5 times.
I'm sorry.
No. So you implementing a security policy. You have a choice. You have security or simplicity. You can't have both. And so what you're trying to do is, if you're going for security, that means you need more feature sets, more steps to follow, which kills the simplicity component. By bringing these two together, what's the next step? I don't know. Maybe this is the last step. But we're excited about it.
Well, Steve, what I would say is this: the next step in password evolution has been multi-factor, right? The next step was, okay, at one point it was write it down on a piece of paper and it sits on your desk and everybody has it, right? This spring 2021 ! Is on somebody's desk, right? So, but then because users were the problem, MFA came into play. And that's another way, again, if for those who aren't aware, multi-factor is something that your password, something that you know what
multi-factor is, yeah,
something that you have or something that you are. So multi being more than one is required here. So you've got your password, something that you know, and then something that you have in most cases, MFA is tied to a device that has some kind of authenticator. We all have 15 of them installed on our phones. It was funny. My wife, we were at church the other day, and she didn't open up her Bible app on her phone. She goes, "Why'd you get rid of your Bible app?" She's like, "I ran out of space." And then I opened her phone. She's got 3 MFA apps in there. She deleted the Bible for MFA apps. I don't know what God's going to do with that. But we all have multiple MFA apps on our phones, and that's an unfortunate reality. Is they're all everywhere. All this solution does is to take of the 3 MFA solution, of the 3 factors that are required, it removes the something you know. So it's now something that you have and something that you are. And the hardest part has been historically something that you are. That's how this solution works. So now the user is literally out of the equation. The password is no longer involved. They're still included in the equation. They're just not required to remember what their password is.
So we technically succeeded by removing the user. Okay.
You hit the nail right on the head. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about. I know you.
Can I chime in real
like,
quick and just answer one of the questions? I'm looking at the YouTube.
That's what I was actually about to say. So let's talk about like how SDO works. So you guys we'll call you a reseller or distributor. So you're going to sell us SDO, and then we got to go buy a bunch of servers and install it and set it all up, and that's how it works, right?
No. So let me kind of go back to full circle to the point of origination of when we first talked to them. How did that conversation evolve? As a quote unquote distributor, CloudPlus was very interested in providing this to resellers, consequently making us a distributor. And the moment I learned that there was a server they had to download and then install, I said, stop the conversation right now. This needs to be click to provision. And he said, sorry, we don't do click to provision. We don't have a multi-tenant architecture. I said, well, we got it. I mean, I'm not going back to a rotary dial phone. I mean, that's just not the way things work. And what they said was, we've been working on this for 1.5 years internally, and it's exceptionally difficult. And there's a lot of security risks, and we didn't find a way to do this without deviating away from the core competency of the development of the platform. And I said, okay, well, let me figure this out. I'd like to go full circle back to the beginning of the conversation where I created the 4th ever hosted exchange offering in the world. So
right.
I'm literally a subject matter expert on it. And we did it quickly, security, all the boxes were checked. They were so excited about this. They said, hey, we're going to move forward with CloudPlus. We hardwired it into the platform. So to use the SDO service in the platform, it's free. Once you have the app on your phone and you start using it, all you have to do is flip a switch and it's already active for your account. You can then activate it for other services. What initially took 4 to 6 weeks from the time of downloading the SDO server to the implementation, the configuration, and the setting up and federation of Office 365 to get rid of the password, we got down to 2.5 hours. Pause. Absolutely unacceptable. We whittled that down to less than an hour. We just did a call while we were talking. We did it live, 2.5 minutes. In 2.5 minutes, it's still unacceptable. I think we could shave off another 20 seconds by preloading a few things. And we want, look at Kyle's just joking on this. I want this to be frictionless. I want this to be seamless. I want it to be click, provision the SDO service. You already have it working inside the CloudPlus platform to access it. You can show your customers how easy it is. It's faster than a password. And the password's constantly changing on the back end. Secure, 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 and easy. Then you flip a switch and you set up Office 365. Congratulations. You now have, for lack of a better term, a passwordless authentication service implemented for Office 365. But what is this? A few dollars a month per seat? You're already paying for it. Why don't you add AWS and Dropbox and everything else that you can possibly add? ConnectWise, we're doing some ConnectWise integrations. There's a variety there's so hundreds and hundreds of things that you can add to this. So you slowly but surely get rid of the multiple users, John, Cindy, and Steve with password 1 over here, and John, Cindy, and Steve with password 2 and here over here, and John, Cindy, and Steve with password 3 over here. If you have 100 users, you don't have 100 users and passwords. You average average customer has 7 to 9 hosted services. You have 700 to 900 users that you have to manage. So if John gets hit by a bus, takes another job, there's attrition, you may remove John from some locations, but not other locations. Guess what? New administrator comes in. Oh, don't delete John. John's been here before me. Well, who's John? Not only is that a massive security risk, but there's actually a tangible cost involved. They're consuming licenses, and these licenses, this license consumption, these floating licenses are growing and growing and growing. This gives you a chance to get rid of all that. And by the way, not only does it increase your user experience, the end user experience is happy. They don't have to worry about passwords, changing the passwords. The admins are super excited because their passwords are constantly getting changed on the back end, and they don't have to worry about it. The reality, the target is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking for hackers to find a compromised password that hasn't been changed and continue to exploit it. That target is shrinking drastically. So the point of the whole thing is we are all about the initial frictionless experience and then the ongoing evolution of consuming this product because you already paid for the license. It's free, everything, once the initial service is activated.
So, I mean, this sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, I'll be honest, like having a solution like this just sounds like a duh to me. But I think there's going to be a lot of questions as far as, but what about this? What about that? Like, for example,
can we get to the question about the hardware?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Matthias, the answer to your question is no. The question is, does it require hardware?
No, not from a back end, but it does require the hardware that you already have, right? There's a phone, and if a phone's not in play, then a YubiKey or something, a FIDO2 device. Right, those things are in play, but the same thing that would be in play in an MFA configuration anywhere, basically. But no hardware on the back end, nothing that gets installed locally with from a server perspective. So, beyond that, we're good.
Perfect. Yep. And then the next question I see is, how exactly does this work for workstations that are joined to an Azure Active Directory?
Yeah. So the fun thing about Microsoft,
the
fun thing about Microsoft is they're fantastic. Right? God love them. We all exist in the IT world, to serve at Microsoft's feet. One of the things that they've done with Azure, if you have Azure only at AD, they don't allow passwords to be reset, across the ports that we need to communicate with. So, in a traditional AD environment, we connect with LDAP-S. With Azure AD, unfortunately, they're not allowing password resets to happen. There is a workaround. We are solving for it. I say Secret Double Octopus actually has it in their code done. It's not generally available yet. So as soon as they make it generally available, it'll be generally available for us. But today, if it were an Azure only environment, then it wouldn't work out of the box. You'd have to have a hybrid environment for it to sync passwords back to the local Active Directory environment. Here in the short term, and I mean short term, it'll work just fine with no problems.
So one of the things that I see a lot of MSPs really, really pushing is we don't need servers anymore. So, I mean, there's always going to be a scenario sometimes, maybe. But for the most part, if you need a server, load it up into Azure as a VM. Everything else is a SaaS app in the cloud. So we wouldn't want a local physical server with Active Directory running on it because we don't need it. So like, how long are we talking before this is able to connect with Azure AD?
Yeah, I can tell you that they're done. They're just doing Q&A. So
works with hybrid. Yeah,
we're
pretty excited.
Perspective, it's pretty close.
Can I share my screen? I drew something up that seems to resonate pretty nicely. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. How about now?
Yes, sir.
So what I drew out, actually drew this on a call with Kyle, is we're talking to an MSP and was not quite understanding how it all fit together. And the way it works is you have let's say your identity management server over here on the left, and that could be AD, Azure, Okta, whatever it may be. And in some cases, you have a VPN connection that's connecting your desktops to that identity management server, to whatever it may be. And what you're doing is you have your Office 365 over here on the right and your services on the right. And you could be, in theory, using the identity management server inside Office 365, or a lot of people are doing this, is they're federating through ADFS into Active Directory. The problem with that particular thing, the last thing I said, in that homogeneous environment, great. But what about outside of the Microsoft infrastructure, the suite? In a heterogeneous environment, massively different. You're still just replicating the problem. So each of these have their own identity management servers, the AWS, the Dropbox, Smartsheets, Google, Salesforce, Zooms. So what we've done is we're saying, hey, we're going to implement SDO here, and it takes the federation. So Office 365 will federate to this. You can still have your VPN to the desktop level, but I'm not a fan of VPNs for a variety of reasons. It just provides a secure tunnel for insecure content, the payload. It's more important to secure the payload, the authentication process. We can get that's totally different conversation. So we'll get to that later time. But the concept is you're federating your Office 365 component, you're authenticating your desktops, your AWS, your Dropbox, Smartsheet, Google, Salesforce. You're getting rid of all the authenticators. It can work. You have your MFA component. If you already have your Cisco Duo implementation, fine. It integrates with Cisco Duo, but it handles the MFA without it. If your Cisco Duo licenses come up for renewal, why pay for them? You've already paid for it for this particular feature. You don't actually need that, but it handles the password rotation, and it still works with your Azure, your AD, and your Okta on the back end. So hopefully this illustrates what we're trying to articulate. I'm a big fan of looking at pictures so I can graph it out. Oh, I think I lost you. Mute.
Now you're muted.
You like that? Yeah. How does it feel?
See what happens when I put Skittles in my mouth and try and be discreet?
It's catching.
I'll be honest about it at least. Kyle, do you have any pretty pictures you want to show us too?
Sure.
He's going to show you pictures of his kids. He's going to show you pictures of the kids. He's going to whip it out right now.
They're definitely prettier than this. Yeah, go ahead. I've got it already shared out. So this is a little diagram of the life cycle of that. There's actually two technologies at play when we talk about passwordless. In this scenario, Active Directory is involved. When Active Directory is involved, a password still exists, right? It's not like we can take Active Directory and get rid of its need and requirement for a password. It's still there. So in this scenario, there is technically still a password. The beauty of it is the user just literally doesn't know it anymore. So when the user goes to actually authenticate, they're authenticating. It then reaches out and says, "Who are you? What's going on?" It reaches into Active Directory, says, "Hey, what's the policy?" It then ends up at the end user's mobile device. They authenticate by whatever means of biometrics they need to, and it then sends the password. The password is broken up over 3 different levels of communication: TLS, SSL, and push notification, or enclave. And then what's actually happening here is it sends it back to the end user in those 3 different levels of encryption, and then authenticates to the device. So it's huge with the amount of security that's involved in here. Tony talked about 2 minutes. So if that Active Directory policy has the password changing every 2 minutes, then that means the bad actors have to hack all 3 levels of encryption in under 2 minutes, or however long you have that policy set for. So it makes for a pretty high, improbable scenario where bad actors are going to be able to do something with if they actually get a hold of, a stream where a password is being sent.
So I see another question, and I think I might even be able to answer this question. So the question is, how would an end user log on to a local device when you're changing the password every 2 minutes? And I think the answer is by pushing a button on their smartphone. And if the device is offline or not, whatever, right? Not attached to the network for whatever reason, then you use a YubiKey. And that would have, and you muted, no, you didn't.
Yeah. Well, the answer is yes. And this actually works. The authenticator that SDO built actually works with Bluetooth, so near field. So it'll actually work in an offline mode in that capacity. Or if the crazy idea, if they're completely offline and nothing's working, they can actually pull up the password in an unencrypted fashion and type it in if they need to. So
Kyle, I'm totally going to steal your. I've
go for it.
I have plagiarized Kyle's. I'm saying this publicly for the first time because I use it all the time. He goes, you know what? I'm kind of done talking about it. Can I just show you? Can I just show you?
Sure.
And here, I'll just show you. Here, wait, how do I share?
Can we invite Eric live? He wants to join us.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Wait, where
that would be awesome, you say. I don't know what you're asking for. Eric is not a nice person sometimes.
That's funny.
And I say that with peace and love, Eric.
That is awesome. So I'm going to show you in real time what this actually looks like. So if you can see my screen and you can see me at the same time. So I'm going to log in with Tony, and this is in Office. And at the top of my screen, you're going to see an alert come up. It's going to the off screen, and there we go. And I sit and see at the top of my screen, this little thing comes up. I hit that, and it's going to say, "Hey, this guy Tony, if you can see that, wants to log in." Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to hit OK, and then it's going to come up with this screen, which you should recognize.
Yep.
Okay. And this all, by the way, happens. I can do this in seconds. It's going to say try again. It looks, and I'm in. When it works in real time, it's faster than entering a password. It's literally yes, face, in. There's no password. And keep in mind, the password's changing on the back end. So you never have to deal with the password changing anymore. And all of your passwords are changing on the back end. And you decide how often they change. Do they change every 2 minutes, 24 hours a day? Do they change every 20 days? You don't know, because there may be some services that have a hard time with that level of load, depending on the level of users and the tenant. So you can decide that.
So Eric has another question, and Eric, I too wish this was the live Q&A, but this is good. Eric's question was, you're way past the original login. The original login to the workstation. So basically, we're interrupting. There is an MSI that gets installed that basically interrupts the Windows authentication process. And instead of looking for a password at login, it's interrupted and says, go grab authentication from Secret Double Octopus. So in that scenario, you're authenticating to the local device. And at that point, you're again, just using your face, your finger, whatever biometrics you have on your phone that says, you're capable of authenticating there. So hopefully that answers that question.
He just said, please get me the URL to join so I can just ask my question.
I like Eric already.
Oh, boy. Should I just bring Eric in?
Yeah, let's do live.
Let's
That's fine.
All right.
Eric, if I start crying live.
He'll be politically correct. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. So in the time that he joins, I will say this. There's two different authentication processes in play here. There's those that align to Active Directory, and anything that you want to SSO or pass authentication back into that. And then there's SAML services. Again, Active Directory is still looking for a password. SAML's different. SAML is an authentication method that allows for pass or fail. It's not looking for a password. It says, hey, are you approved? 1, yes. No, 0. 1 or 0. It's that simple. In those scenarios, passwords aren't in play, but authentication is purely in play. With a lot of services, they were still tying a password here. Again, we're still doing multi-factor in this scenario. We've just taken the password out of it. So it's still something you have, your mobile device, and something you are in this case, which is better than a password because we've proven that passwords suck. It's one of those scenarios where it absolutely makes sense. And SAML as a protocol is widely accepted as being a secure application or a secure protocol. And it's being used in a lot of places. Tony said hundreds. It's more than hundreds of places.
I'm trying to be nice. I don't want to I don't want to get into everyone is going to start arguing. And if I say hundreds, people go, okay, fine. I'll settle with that.
Well, the one thing I'll say though is that sure, like single sign-on is available with a lot of services, but services even like Slack, you got to pay for like the higher tier just to get SSO included.
Well, okay,
In,
so
in
there's a
some
variety
cases,
of reasons
yeah.
for that. If you understand the reasons for that, it's going to be like, hey, well, why would somebody charge for SAML? Okay, why would you charge for another way to access the service? Well, for anyone who's owned a company, it took a lot of time to develop that, and it's not. This is systemic. This is not a front door. The front door is one component of it. That's the SAML interface, and that's going to require, you need an IP coming in. You need SSL certificates. You need to bind them to, let's say, a load balancer. There's so much work that goes into just the front door, but the systemic changes on the back end into the actual identity management architecture on the back end, it costs a lot of money. So you're hoping that people pay that back in some respect, but that's not the real issue. I think the real issue is, even though you have a SAML component coming in, what if a whole bunch of people start using SAML? Unless your service was initially architected from the ground up to accommodate SAML, the more people that come in, you are now you're looking for an authoritative source of authentication outside of your own identity management platform, which means it could impact performance. And if that's the case, you have things outside of everything else I just talked about that you have to work on. So there is a lot of cost involved if you did not build it from the ground up for finding an external authoritative source of authentication.
Well,
Sorry to bore you with this.
I would argue that it's going to change too, because SAML's been around for a long time. 2003 was the first instance. The version 2 of SAML, which is the version that we're kind of currently on, was 2005. So in just 2 years. But for since 2005 to now, so 16 years later, it's still working. There have been some iterations with it, but it's a protocol that, frankly, as the world changes and evolves, it will be like all of the additional add-on services. They eventually get rolled in. So for those services, Zoom. Everybody's using Zoom. You have to have one of their premium licenses in order to have access to SSO for Zoom. That will go away as passwords start to die, and this becomes more mainstream. They won't be able to charge for it. So it will evolve and open up.
Gotcha. Well, I do have Eric here. Are you sure you want Eric to ask you questions live?
Yes.
You're muted, Tony. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm going to stay muted, by the way.
Oh.
Eric! I don't know you, but I already like you, like a lot.
Okay.
You know me.
Oh, yeah, Tony, he gives you crap all the time.
Where? When? No, we haven't gone drinking.
Tony that's in Florida, right? That always wears wife beaters on webcam.
They're legitimate tank tops. They're not actually classified as come on.
He knows you.
That was hilarious.
By the way, I have a filter. I'm actually wearing a tank top right now, but I have a special filter that adds sleeves on. I don't know if you guys can tell.
Tony might actually be Florida.
That's the whole classic Florida weather there. So
it is everything. Come on, if you're not in shorts and a tank top and sandals, you are miserable. Like you're.
2 days ago, it was 70 degrees. Today, it is snowing.
It's beautiful.
No.
All right, Eric Taylor, hit us with some hard questions. Actually, don't make them too hard, if you don't mind.
No, I just had to take it and everything. Y'all can hear me, correct?
Eric, you're distant. You're like fading in and out. I can barely.
Yeah,
hear you.
you're really quiet. I think he needs to call tech support. Just give him 1 second. Oh, I just got a message. Help. Nope.
Don't start, Steve. Don't start.
I'm kidding, Eric. I'm kidding.
Can y'all hear me better now?
Yes.
Good. So too many cameras and mics and all this stuff around here. But anyway, so yeah, I just want to push back because we've got a lot of people that are, I know you got roadmap for Azure AD. And I'm assuming that the new versioning that's going to come out is going to leverage Microsoft Graph API to help stimulate a lot of those password changes, but you're going to be rate limited on that because that's what Microsoft does with everything is rate limit. But when you have an FDIC, you have a bank that is leveraging Microsoft Hello, or Windows Hello, and using the biometric, which is required, or is so you're using biometric fingerprint that with 20H2 is required to use Windows Hello as that biometric authenticator.
But this is where I pause for just a moment, and I'm really curious into where that you hear that they require the Windows Hello, because I'm under the assumption that they require, if you're talking about HIPAA, GLBA, Sarbanes-Oxley, SEC compliance, that has certain requirements for authentication, there's going to be a biometric component that may be, it's kind of like, we need you to validate who you are, which includes driver's license, passport, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a list of things that meet that top requirement. And I'm under the impression that Windows Hello is the passport that gives you, okay, so it doesn't have to be Windows Hello. It has to be one of these things that adheres to the biometric component. So
exactly. So
okay,
to take a step, you're going a little bit more into the federal compliancy side. I'm going from a network telepathy side. So if you have a server 2019 in place and you're running at a 2019 or 2016 level, you have
define
to
2016 level. I'm not understanding that part.
Domain controller 2016.
Okay, got it.
Function level.
Okay.
So you have to leverage Windows Hello to use biometric.
Okay.
So how would your platform work if I tried to integrate you guys into a bank or somewhere that we have to put biometrics in?
So okay, so now I understand. If you would have gone back to like 2013, like R2, I would have been like, I really like you, like that this is like old school, like get your hands dirty and let's figure out how to dig our way out of this. For the people who remember that, probably just gave like 5 people anxiety attacks thinking about that. I want to make sure we divide the responsibility. CloudPlus is the we're the distributor, for lack of a better term, because I'll fall back on that because disties don't do anything. But what we've actually done, you like that? But what we've done is not only have we made it multi-tenant on the back end, and we've front-ended the interface to allow you to seamlessly enable it, implement it, manage it. That's what we've done on the front end, and then give you a singular source to come in. And that's going to evolve very quickly into other password managers. We'll talk about that at a later time, but we're really excited. Just met with one yesterday. That's what CloudPlus does. The other side of that, the yin to the yang, is the actual vendor that provides the service, the SDO, the secret double octopus, the vendor themselves. And this is why I'm referring to, I have to give you the landscape. They worked really hard on bypassing the Windows Hello component. So to answer, I'm hoping you understand why I'm saying both sides, because they, from what I understand, have figured out a way to bypass the Windows Hello component. And it goes deep into what Kyle referred to earlier as, hey, this will work with NFC. This will store because if you don't have an internet connection, it stores the last 20 days, stores the password locally on the app for the last 20 days. You can use the FIDO key. There's a variety of things that can actually happen, but it still has to pass the Windows Hello. If it doesn't pass the Windows Hello, everything I just said is worthless. They figured that out, and it was a critical component. But then guess what the next, I'm going a little bit further because I know.
No, I'm following you.
Well, if you whittle away at this, you're going to come up to all of these because there's a simple stack and there's an order. The next question was, well, what happens if you don't have a VPN? How do you authenticate at the initial time if you don't have a VPN connection to the desktop? There are remote users, for example. I'm sorry. So you're local, great. You're connected to the AD. Congratulations. You got a secure transport in your local LAN. But what about the remote users? If you don't have a VPN connection, how can you possibly authenticate that into the domain? Anybody there's nothing about that that's positive. We figured that out, which goes back to what I kind of snuck in there. Because we are a singular implementation with a singular entry point, we can implement that at the MSI level for the installation of the desktop, which goes back, establishes a secure transport, establishes, yes, this is validated. Yes, it's authenticated. Yes, it's approved from the back end. Boom. From that point forward, it doesn't really matter how they're connecting to the internet, or if they don't connect to the internet, it is going to consume something that bypasses the Windows Hello, uses the biometric on the phone, or the locally stored password for the last 20 days on the phone, or the FIDO key. And we're working on an RSA token as well.
Yeah.
What is your timeline for the RSA token? Just out of curiosity.
Like if I could sit there and tell you 5 other things we're working on, and everyone, what's the timeline on that? And everything has a timeline.
Just shoot from the hip. Just shoot.
To be fair, the RSA token is done with SDO. So SDO has the ability to do an RSA token.
Don't tell them that. I say 90 days, and when it's done right away, Kyle, you are killing me on this, man. Like,
we just have to implement it ourselves. Yeah. So, Eric, the reality is we have an instance of SDO that we've multi-tenanted. We're surfacing those controls, and we can show that here in a moment if that makes sense. We're serving those controls to the end user or to the IT professional to manage. And in that scenario, we just haven't surfaced those controls for the RSA token yet.
So are you guys only able to leverage Microsoft Azure? Well, no, sorry, take it back. So you're only able to leverage on-premise domain right now, correct?
Or a hybrid environment, or a hybrid environment, or again, and very soon, a Azure only AD.
So if they are in a hybrid environment, does that include G Suite hybrid environments?
Yes.
Okay.
And do you have to have Azure or G Suite or one of those type of platforms, or is there something else that we can be using as like the directory?
Well, that user directory is very important.
You can use us as the directory, actually. So that inherent in our environment, we are the directory. We actually give the ability to give the direct bypass us and use yourself or some other instance as a directory, but we are the directory in instances. So where there isn't one in some environments, or you just don't want to mess with it, we'll actually hold that. Go ahead, Eric. I love the physical raise of hands. That's great.
Steve knows where that comes from, but anyway, I digress. So when we are a Microsoft CSP, and we got to go through hoops just to get away from the Microsoft Authenticator as the 2FA, MFA application, and use a tool like Duo Security.
Yep.
If we go to you guys, are you going to be able to? You're going to bypass that, and is that approved by Microsoft? Because at last report, at least 2 weeks ago.
Level. It's done at the tenant level, and you can actually, as a CSP, you have the ability to implement this as a standard. So what we're doing is we're actually we're baking into the Microsoft tools component where it's a setup tools. This I'm getting really technical here, so please stop me. But when this gets, Kyle hates this part. Where let's say you're doing implementation. So, and this is important because you're doing an implementation, and for the technical people out there, they know that there's a session established, right? And great, we're going to make the new authoritative server federation somewhere else. If the session is already established, that session can exist for weeks, possibly months, especially with teams. What do they call that? The universal. What do they call that session? Kind of like the RPC over HTTPS session after. It doesn't need to authenticate, essentially. What we're doing, though, is we're going to allow you to click a button, refresh the immutable IDs, and force the authentication. Because as the IT admin, you don't think about that. You're thinking, hey, I implemented a new authoritative server. But if the session's already established and you let go a C-level, a key member of the team, and they have Outlook or Drive or Team, whatever established, the connection is already established at home, and they never shut off their computer, they still have access for weeks, if not months, to all of that data. But by refreshing the immutable IDs, instant dropping the session, the token's refreshed, you have to authenticate. Everybody's forced to authenticate with this new SDO component. So we are implementing tools slowly but surely to really enable, empower the admin to not only do it, but do it the way they want, when they want, hit a button, and it's done. And now they're forcing everyone to go through a unified way that not only increases the end user experience, but the IT administrative team. Was it 80-something% of support tickets are permissions related? A big lion's share of those are password resets. You've crushed the password resets. You've destroyed them just by doing. Yeah.
So we're going to be, like on the news anchor, we're going to circle back again and go back to the beginning of the question, please, because it was not answered.
Oh, okay. What is that?
So Microsoft has an approved list of authenticators that can replace the Microsoft platform as a 2FA MFA. Duo Security is there. Are you on that list? So we go into Microsoft and say, hey, we need to be exempted for a CSP, and we go through that process. And trust me, that we set up a Teams call, they go through it all. It's a freaking nightmare to deal with. But are you on that list? So when your stuff pops up, we can get that exemption.
I've never, we don't have any problems with it, but I would love, Kyle, if you can ask the SDO
Eric,
team.
I'm taking a note.
Yeah.
That's a good question. This might be one of those follow up in the comments or follow up with you directly. I'm not aware, but it's in the wild. It's being used by a lot of different organizations, big, small, and very, very, very large. I can't imagine there's an issue here.
Okay.
If you had to guess, how many tenants or end users or whatever kind of metric would you say that you have SDO pushed out to?
We're in the process of actually deploying. We cannot give that number away. We literally just went through a board meeting last week about this. So, but I can talk about the reason for that offline.
I will say SDO themselves have been around for many years, many years, and have not suffered with their efforts in sales. So it's deployed pretty vastly out there.
So,
and by the way, that's called a modern authentication, or modern authentication, is that's what their session is called, modern authentication. I'm getting notes coming in my chat.
Eric, does that answer all of the questions you've got for now?
For now, but I'm sure I'll have some more in about 5 minutes. Tony's probably starting to remember who I am now.
I do. I actually no. I definitely do now. So it's funny, but you've always been nice. You're always to the point, and you're like, no. I don't care about that stuff. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, I'm just a rough around the edges. That's all.
That's nothing. I like that, man. That's these are good questions, and what I'm really hoping for is that as something as simple as like, will Microsoft approve it? I'm hoping it's one of those. Yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to implement it. Otherwise, Okta wouldn't have been able to do the integration. I'm sorry, Okta. Cisco Duo wouldn't have been able to do the integration with them because then there isn't that capability. It doesn't make any sense to do the integration. But Okta, Cisco Duo, there's so much push going forward with this SDO product, but it's such a heavy server to implement. Our job is just to make it easier.
Just to beat you up, Duo is not by Cisco. It's their own platform, but duosecurity.com.
They're owned by Cisco.
That's right. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
2.3 billion. Cisco would be upset if you just depleted the expense on that.
Oh, that's because I'm trying to kick all them out and put Fortinet's in.
Oh boy.
Hey, can I switch gears for half a second and actually show you? I know Tony showed you what it takes to authenticate, but I'll just show you real quick what the user experience looks like in our platform. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I think we answered all of Eric's questions, so I'm going to with Eric. That way we can keep this thing rolling.
Well, don't dump him. You might have other questions, but yeah.
I love you. I mean, I'll just remove him. He's not dumped. See, he's still talking. We just can't see or hear him now. It's great. All right. So let's you poor guy. You have a screen here you're going to share with us.
Yeah, and I'm going to do so just like Tony did. Just for a second, just get my phone to where it goes back to a natural state. Okay, so I'm signing into CloudPlus. I got the prompt just like Tony did. It's looking for me as the user and said, hey, do you want to approve? I'm going to approve. It scans my face. And of course, when I'm doing it live, it doesn't like my face because of the beard. And then
I think you have a very nice face, Kyle.
I appreciate that, Steve. You have a nice face.
You got like 3 shades of red just now.
Isn't that wonderful? Well, of course, Tony, when this happens, my phone of all phones, it hates my face. So I put in another biometric.
His phone does not agree with what you just said, Stephen. I'm just letting you know that.
So here's our UI, and we're not here to say the value of CloudPlus, although we've kind of talked about some of that. Just looking at Secret Double Octopus, I'll show myself as a user, and you can see, just from an admin's perspective, if I'm managing our environment, here's the services that are tied to me as an account. Here's the different devices that I have the Authenticator app and are approved to use the authentication app for. So if I were to misplace the device or leave it at home, or leave it at a restaurant, I could block it until I get it back, or have somebody block it for me, or just remove it altogether. There's multiple. You can have multiple devices tied to this. But let's walk through the scenario where you say, hey, you know what, Kyle's really really forgetful sometimes, and I jumped in the pool and I don't have one of those snazzy iPhones that's waterproof, right? So now my Android device is toast. I call up the IT guy and say, I can't authenticate without this authenticator. How do I solve for that? We have the ability to bypass that authentication process. So you can actually create a password, as evil as they are. You can create a password, even auto-generate a crazy one, and then set a time limit for how long that password is good. So you know what? I should have one later on this afternoon, so we're going to set it for 12 hours from now. This is good. Now I'm bypassing the authentication method of this and just generating a password for one-time use. So we've thought about the process and thought about the ways that users are going to be using this, and even accounted for the off chance that Aunt Betty, if you will, leaves her phone at home when she drives all the way to the office and she needs a password for the day. You can solve for that. Pretty simple. Here's a list of some of the different services that are pre-baked. You also have the ability to add generic SAML services. So generic SAML will be just any type of service on the back end. So here's the information that you're going to get from that application, basically the keys from that side. Here's the keys from our instance that you're going to populate back into their side. And then allowed users. Here I'm defining what users can actually authenticate with this service back in the system, and even be all users. So if any users get added along the way, just go back to your question, Steve, you can use us as the list, or even if this is tied to AD, it'll show up there as well. So pretty simple, pretty sweet, straightforward. I'm defining the policy, for password management in Active Directory environments. And then I got full visibility into the log, and I'm not going to show you the log because these are active use. So, I can see who's authenticating when, who's got failed authentications, so forth and so on. So pretty straightforward, nothing overly complex, from a management perspective. But again, the process for using this is meant to be simple. We're simplifying the process, across the board. So, Steve, I'm sure you got questions, I don't know if Eric's got questions, but
so many. I see he's going back and forth in the chat. I see
We're talking. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are going back and forth. So yeah. Where do I begin? All right. So I just want to clarify. Super Double Octopus is the software. Secret. Everything's super. So Secret Double Octopus is the software vendor. So this isn't something that you guys built from the ground up. The only thing that you guys built from the ground up is building it into something that's a multi-tenant platform, which is the same thing that you guys did with Microsoft. But you're using somebody else's software to provide us this solution.
CloudPlus is a hosted services distribution platform, and we turned Secret Double Octopus, SDO, into a hosted service. It was never before a hosted service, but we found that the technology superiority, the ease of management, and the functionality set was so needed in the SMB market that we built it for the MSP community.
Got it. So let's see what other silly questions he's asking. So non-domain desktops, like a yes or no. Can you do it today? Will you be able to do it soon?
We figured it out. Yeah, that's
okay.
That was literally the last piece of the puzzle, and it was a jump up and down moment. Actually, it was okay, stop messing with me, stop, and then they figured it out. I was like, oh, wow.
Gotcha. What about like, I hate having all these authenticators, the Authies and the Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, Duo, whatever else, right? So can I just like get rid of all that and use you guys?
We're not supposed to say you can do whatever you want. You totally can get rid of it. You can totally get rid of it.
Here's the answer. The answer is if the application has some ability to tie back or back, SSO or federate back to, your Active Directory environment, or it has a SAML, SAML capable authentication path, then yes,
got it.
Absolutely. If that exists, then you don't need those others.
There's always
we
people
can't
that
use
like
it with things like.
Go ahead.
So like we can't use it with things like LinkedIn or Facebook because those just don't have that type of ability today.
Not today.
This is where I'm not allowed to say too much, but I just
or anything at all.
I just met yesterday.
Or anything at all.
This is you're literally getting the company culture right here in one snap.
You're in the middle of it right now, Eric.
Yeah. Hi. Because CloudPlus is a singular instance of so let me pause for a second. The dirty secret of the passwordless authentication solution is that you need a singular instance at every location. You need to install something at every location. CloudPlus has destroyed that. Now it's a singular location that's a true multi-tenant click to provision service. Consequently, because it is a singular location, we are researching heavily. You see what I did there, Kyle? I just researching. The ability to work with password managers for accounts that are not domain owned, user@gmail.com, to provide not only the MFA component, but in theory, if someone like Gmail, LinkedIn, has a SAML interface that we can authenticate to, we have the ability to do the password rotation as well. And that is unheard of. That will set aside a password manager head and shoulders above everyone. So, and that can only be done through the CloudPlus platform. So we foresaw this a year ago, and we have been working on it very, very aggressively. But it's not as easy as you think, because it's largely in line with not just the SDO implementation, the CloudPlus platform, which we've just finalized, but it's also the password manager themselves and how they manage passwords.
So I really can't wait to see how all this works once you guys have finished doing your research.
Well, I think we're past the research. Oh, I mean, yes, we're researching.
Steve,
I swear I just saw.
This is where you kick Tony off the screen for me, Steve.
We're totally researching. We're totally researching.
Please,
I swear I just saw Kyle just go.
Totally researching.
This is my nervous smile. Yeah.
We're trying to make things better. We're a distribution company. We're a distribution platform that actually adds value to not just the reseller, but the actual end customer, and most importantly, the end user themselves. And that's never been done before, because the five components of our industry, we all know this. You've got if you guys can see my hand here, you've got your vendors are going through your distribution points to get to the resellers, to get to the companies to service the end users. So John, Cindy, and Steve are employed to the customer that are getting serviced by the resellers, that are getting their stuff through the distribution points, the Tech Data, Ingram Micro, Synex, D&H, Pax8, Arrow, all of those guys, the master agents, okay, to provide vendors from the service. We're automating this layer, and we're turning all of the resellers themselves into distribution mechanisms. That is,
and that's honestly kind of the future. That's also, I was just about to say, that's where MSPs are headed.
Well, Jay McBain at Forrester Group just did a blog post that was devastating. It was a ground shaking blog post, and it was beautiful. And it says, hey, listen, if you are a distributor and you do not have a hosted services distribution platform to enable other resellers to become distribution points, you're a dinosaur. There's an eventuality to what's going to happen. So so CloudPlus is
giving you a big nod, big smile and nod.
I can see it down there. Yeah, and so we don't want to be a distributor, but we have to preload those integrations with a distribution agreement, because otherwise, maybe the vendor agreement is there, maybe it's not. We want you to override it with your own, but we're also going to provide, the services that you don't have that vendor agreement with. It will even introduce you into the vendor, and hopefully you can establish that relationship yourself. So we're empowering the resellers to sell what everybody else is selling, but sell it better. Keep the customer happy. Give the 20% of your customers that may or may not be leaving, may or may not be coming on board with a speculation, a hesitancy. Give them the capability to have complete control, but in a sandbox that you provide, which means you're getting paid on everything that you're doing, which means you have the stickiness solution, and you start consolidating their users, and then the passwordless authentication. They're never going anywhere. You'll always have the right of first refusal. And the CloudPlus platform is free. There's no charge for it. It's just automating what was being done manually before.
Oh, and by the way, protect your own house first. If you're on our platform and you're bringing this to your clients, we'll actually give you the licenses. And if we'll give you the licenses for your own internal use. I'm saying this, and Tony's the one now making the face. The only caveat is we ask that you start selling SDO. So as soon as you have, passwordless authentication clients deployed, then, you'll be off the hook for your own licenses. It's so good. Everybody should, you said in the beginning, Steve, it almost sounds like a no-brainer. As long as we got the right environment, we got the right, technical setup, and we've got, the right customer with the right applications, it's a beautiful thing. It really absolutely is.
So let's talk, brass tacks here. How much does this cost?
$5 million. We've been pushing.
Get out.
So I know. This is. I'm going to hand it over to Kyle. But here's one of the things I said. My objective is to get it down to $1 a seat per month. That was my objective. They laughed. They laughed at me. They said, "Are you kidding me? Retail is $6 for the big cup for the enterprise." And I laughed at that. I said, no, that's not going to happen. So this is where I pass it over to Kyle.
And this is where I wish we could go back 30 seconds and you could have kicked Tony off again. So cost, I won't give the MSP cost away because there's margin to be had there, but there's definitely margin. We're anticipating that you will sell this to your end customers at $4. And there's more points than the average MSP gets for Office 365 and then some, almost double in a lot of scenarios. In most scenarios, there's double the points that you're getting from that. So there's money to be made. But I venture to say that, and not that people would add this to their stack because they want to make money or not make money. We're all in the business of making money. There's double-digit margin to be made here. The reality is you're getting these calls anyways. I would say that one value point alone is worth the effort here. And Tony said 80%, and he was misquoting another one because all percentages are made up. This is not 20 to 50% is what Gardner says is the number of help desk tickets that an organization are related to password resets. So somewhere between 20% and 50%. Let's meet in the middle of 30%.
I said 83%. It was 83% of hacks are done from a compromised password. I am so sorry. And as soon as I said it, I think I said the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's all good.
No, so thank you for calling me on that.
That's all right. Sure. That's my job. So let's say 30%. 30% of all help desk tickets are related to password resets. If those go away, then what's the cost of your FTE? The average cost of a help desk ticket is around $75, plus or minus, depending on who's answering the other side of it. But password reset, let's call their low value, tier 1 techs. So it's still $75 per ticket. So 30% of my tickets, what's the cost for an FTE? There's money to be saved that goes back into the pocket of the MSPs who's managing a help desk, and responsible for keeping up with that. Not even talking about what he's going to carry in margin on reselling the product. So this is definitely a win-win-win for everybody involved. Us as the vendor, for the MSP involved with reducing the number of tickets they're going to get, securing their end users, and the end user themselves, who no longer has to worry about, oh crap, what's my password for this service? We all do it. I put a survey out on LinkedIn the other day. Raise your hand if you reuse passwords. You do that in a room of IT professionals, of MSPs, and if they're being honest, 3/4 of them will have to raise their hands because we all reuse passwords. This takes us out of the equation, which makes it better. That's the whole beauty of it.
And I think I'm going to make an educated guess at your pricing, and you don't have to confirm, smile, nod, none of it. So I'm going to say for $2.50 a license, a user, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that's terrible.
You're not far off. I'll just, since you're forcing my hand, the cost of the MSP is $2.90. So
was close.
You're selling it for $4 and change.
You crumbled so easy, so easy.
You forced my hand. There's 28 points. There's 28 points on that to your end customer. So
that's good.
And
let's be honest, we're not gonna line item this. We're just gonna include it as part of our per user fee or per device fee, or however we do that. So
we and that's the interesting conversation. So it's funny you bring that up. MSPs there's two camps here, and my hands are there's two camps.
Sure.
There's the camp of, I've already got this contract in place. I need to do this for my customer. I'm going to eat the cost, and then I'll pick it up on our next re-up of that contract. Or there's and then there are those who are planning or who have line item this out as an add-on to their customer until they get to the ability to put it in their all you can eat bundle price. So where you land is a personal scenario. With how you want to accomplish that. We've got marketing material. We're willing to get into the weeds and help you. Heck, I'll even jump on a sales call if it helps. It might not help. It might detract from the process. But if you need that, we'll
depends
help.
on how easily you cave.
That's true. I'm a terrible buyer. I'm a terrible buyer. I am a good buyer.
I am too. It's okay.
Yeah.
I see shiny new toy and I immediately want it. So I'm a great consumer for like literally any sales guy. You could be the worst sales guy in the world. As long as you're nice to me, I'll probably buy it. All right. So is there anything else
can I let me touch on that for a second, because I think I'm in that same boat, but I always play the card of, I don't get it. Explain it. If you can't explain it, you don't understand it. And the moment we started talking, you said, this sounds like a solution. I think that was your term that you used. And that's the way it should be. That's exactly the reaction that we get every single time and that we want, because if it doesn't make sense instantly, then there's something wrong. It should be a seamless, a frictionless implementation. There shouldn't be a project to implement something. It shouldn't disrupt your normal day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And if it does, it should be so minimal. It should be one time. There should be zero maintenance involved, because you're creating a like more automation to the things that you're doing manually. That's what you should be doing. Everything that we do in life should be around the concept of, in the theme of building technology. And technology is, you build it once, you use it a million times. That's the only way it really becomes, financially valuable, for lack of a better term. So this is exactly that, where you implement it once, it's used millions of times, and it's scalable, and it's automating a lot of the things that were done manually. It's getting rid of the what was the percentage of support tickets now? And I don't want to say that
20 to 50%.
20 to 50%, and the double-digit percentage of those were support tickets are for password resets, and those are a large portion of those. The lion's shares are done on Mondays, okay, and they're typically done from the same people. So I know those statistics, but it's axing away at that in an automated fashion. And that is where the value comes in, which goes into this is a simple solution. So I'm glad it resonated with you instantly. It made me very happy.
Well, me too. So I feel like we've kind of, answered all the questions. We've had a lot of fun in the chat.
The chat is hilarious. Like, I'm trying not to laugh in this chat. I'm like, this is hilarious. For those of you who can't see, there's a backroom chat going on right now. And
yeah, there's that one too. Yeah. So cloudplus.net/services, if you want to learn about all of the services that CloudPlus has to offer, which Microsoft CSP, BitTitan, I think you've got that on there. WebRoot, Reflection. I'm sorry,
there's
Titan
Titan,
HQ.
WebTitan. Yep.
Yeah, so there's quite a few things on there for you to check out, and then they've also got yet another "Have I Been Pwned" dark web scan thing. But the cool thing is their scan is integrated right into like the database of all the email addresses that they see you're providing using the Microsoft CSP. So they just scan it all for you, and you get a daily report or weekly report or whatever. And then from there, check out everyonehatespasswords.com. That will take you right to the page on CloudPlus's website to learn more about super duper secret double octopus. Secret double octopus, that is the tool in the back end, which you guys have really taken to a whole new level by creating a multi-tenant platform for, so we can have passwordless logins. And I believe you said you'll give it to us for us to use in-house.
Yeah,
Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, MSPs, we will give NFR licenses to MSPs as long as they're selling SDL. Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't cost you anything to become a partner of CloudPlus.
Nope.
And it doesn't cost you anything to like start trying out CloudPlus's passwordless login platform. Yeah. So I don't see anything to lose here by you trying it out.
Yeah.
And once you decide whether you like it or not, whatever, right? I can't promise you'll love it, but you probably should. Then you'll probably start moving your clients' licensing for Microsoft 365 over to CloudPlus, because why have more than one bill? And then you'll be able to start implementing SDO into those 365 tenants a little more easily, I think, because it's all at the same place. So it's easier when the 365 is like run by you guys than if we were to be doing it separately.
Yeah, we'll get to a place here in the short term where literally the process for onboarding Office 365, if you have CloudPlus, is the click of a button, because we already know the information on the back end. The process now takes, that Tony described as 2.5 minutes, is you typing in, and giving us access to run PowerScript on your behalf. We won't even need to do that. It will literally take 12 seconds. So, which is what Tony wants to get to.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So did I miss anything in that short little?
No, that was great. This has been fantastic. In fact, if before we leave, we can say bye to Eric on screen, I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring him on. I'll even unmute him. There you go, Eric.
Hooray! I get a cookie.
Oh boy!
You're just bringing him back on screen. I'm like, please have clothes on. Please have clothes on. Please.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
At least I wasn't running from the kitchen or something. You'd be like,
yeah.
Now, thank you very much, Eric. Seriously, the questions are perfect. These are the questions that need to be asked, and the questions that you asked were answered because other people engaged and said, "Well, what about X? What about Y? What about Z?" And we better have those things answered and solidified, calcified into a hardened, battle-tested response otherwise it's not going to go very well. And so what we've been doing is we've been slowly rolling it out to MSPs, and we think we're at the point now where the big announcements that are coming out, where you're never ever confident. You're always afraid. Authentication is a big deal. We're looking pretty good now, and we're excited about the next steps ahead. We're hoping that the SMB market will consider this a standard to consolidate. The passwordless should be a standard. And since this is built for the MSP community is going to use it in-house, in shock if they don't see it in their audience, in their customer base.
And I was going to say, and I would challenge just as Steve did. There's the only risk that you have with trying this and putting your hands on it, like all nerds love to do with new toys, it would be just the time. So if we can have you up in a couple of minutes, and it doesn't take you long to spin up an environment to play with this, then you're going to invest an hour in this, and passwordless is on its way. Passwordless is coming, regardless of whether or not you want to be a part of it now or later. And SMB tends to follow enterprise. Enterprise has been looking at this and playing with this for at least 2 years now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be happening more and more. And if it's not that Microsoft is the answer to all things, but according to them, 2021 is the year of passwordless. So they're making that push, and it's happening everywhere. You're going to start hearing passwordless announcements everywhere. We are the first one to bring this to SMB, because otherwise you'd have to stand up a stack for your own instance of these types of solutions. So if it's not going to hurt you to test it and play around with it, come check us out. Come waste our time, even if you're not going to buy it. We'd love to get your feedback, and more importantly, we'd love for it to fit and it to line up for what your customers are trying to solve for with their security stack.
So
Love it.
yeah, I won't say that. Never mind. But challenge accepted.
I like that.
Those who know what I do, challenge accepted. We'll have fun.
I can see in the chat right now, they're like, Tony, you are screwed. And I'm reading it right there. I'm just kidding.
No, I was about to say, I don't think that's in there, but I do want to point out, because Tony in the private chat, gave the URL. It's very, very Tony, you're
see, thanks,
there
Steve.
you go. Now it's come up.
Yeah.
Now it's in ether. But so many partners that we use, cloud distribution partners and stuff, they don't eat their own dog food, so to speak. You guys are so behind this product. You have integrated
Did you like that?
SEO into your portal. There are Microsoft partners doing CSP that use Google off instead of Microsoft.
The fact that you recognize that is beautiful. It is beautiful. So just so you know, we just changed it. So now it's forcing you. What I wanted to say, please tell me you think this is funny. I got vetoed. I got kicked really hard for this. But when you log into CP, like CP
Yep.
dot, like control panel dot cloudplusservice.com, which you can private label to whatever you want. cp.yourdomain.com, my.yourotherdomain.com, whatever you want. We don't care. But the white label, gray label is cp.cloudplusservice.com. It defaults to was the authenticate with secret double octopus. And
Yep.
you saw the screen. I wanted the other one to say legacy less secure password. And you click it and then you just enter your username and password. And of course, that's going to make everyone go, what's SDO? What? And I go, oh, it's free. It's a way to, it's free. So of course you're going to install it, and then you're going to realize that there's no password, and you're going to realize that it's changing the password all the time on the back end. And then you realize you could just add Office 365 and add Google and add AWS and add Dropbox and add ConnectWise and add Salesforce and get rid of your authenticators. And it's free for all that. You've already taken care of the one Office 365 component. I wanted to do that, and apparently that's not politically correct. So I'm just glad that you realize that we're truly eating our own cooking. This is not a joke. We love this stuff. We use it every day, and we wouldn't be going this far into it if we didn't really believe in it.
I recommend drinking your own champagne. That's the way I phrase it.
Sometimes, Steve, I just don't know how to.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
So thank you guys so much for coming on and doing this with us today.
Thank you, Steve.
I love what I learned. Eric, thank you for coming in and being nice-ish.
Color commentary. You always need someone like Eric.
I was very nice. I was very tame.
He was actually. I didn't even have to hit the censor button.
And I didn't get temporary banned on YouTube either. So today's a good day.
I had to ban him one time. It was funny. All right, guys. For those of you that are watching, they put it in the chat earlier. SDO@cloudplus.net if you have more questions, and or just go to everyone hates passwords.com.
It's actually either everyone or everybody hates passwords.
Yeah, because I couldn't remember, so I went to the one and I was like, I wonder if it's the other.
I couldn't remember, so we got the other domain as well. So I'm glad we covered that as well. Thank you so much for your time, Steve. I really appreciate it. Seriously, Eric, absolute pleasure as always.
Yes, sir.
All right. I will see you all at the next webinar.